Okay, that's looking promising. Just doing some quick sound checks here. Yep, perfect. So, alrighty. Oh, been a long while. Technically, I did stream just a couple of weeks ago, but since I never posted the recording of that stream anywhere, it basically didn't exist. Welcome back, though, to Programming Together. This is the programming stream where I show you what a professional with 25 years of experience can struggle with, but also kind of how we just get things done, how we focus on delivering pieces or building out software that we can deliver. We are working tonight on the Visions Virtual Tabletop, which is a application for doing role-playing games online, but in the style that I tend to do directly at the table, which is a lot of theater of the mind, abstract combat, handing out items to people, being able to pass things back and forth very easily, and just things like that. Things that, at least to my opinion, don't really get done very well, or in some cases even at all, in most virtual tabletops. I actually started this project back in December, maybe even earlier, threw away all of the code related to it after doing some prototype work, and then did the biggest chunk of the work basically in April and May, and then it kind of stalled out for a while. But at the moment, I'm going to show you kind of where we are. I'm going to log in with both a GM and a player account. There we go. Okay, so not actually the clearest of things ever, but left column, I am logged in as the GM for a campaign that I'm calling the Circle of the Winter Solstice. I'm going to go ahead and jump in so that we can see the GM view. The idea being, first of all, at the moment, just the title of the campaign, but then later on the title of the scene that we're in. Oh, hang on. Okay, yeah, this does work, sort of. So down the left column, we've got scenes that are involved in this campaign. Down the right column, I've got the players that are involved in this campaign, or really the player characters. There's only one built in. And over in the player account, jumping into the game, slightly different view, it is the same character for every player, no matter what. Got our big background right here, shared between the two. The background is basically stable for the entire campaign. And then we've got our tabletop, which loads up very easily. So the GM can set an image on the tabletop, and that is really the full extent of the capabilities of the application right now. The idea, though, and what we're working on tonight, is there are cards, as in literal index cards, that at least for the GM should be visible in this column. I don't know why they aren't yet. We're going to do some diagnostics. But these cards are really kind of the core feature of my application. The GM can drag a card out onto the tabletop. It'll appear to all players. Players can pick the card up and add it to their inventory. Really useful for items and whatnot. So that's what we're going to be working on this evening. Earlier today, I was making sure that is that big enough? Let me get it a little bit bigger. Earlier today, I was making sure that I had some API handlers for the cards. I was making sure that I had some automated testing. So testing such as verifying that the GM can create a card, verifying that a player can create a card, because of course, player might need to write something down on a card at some point. But more focused earlier today on making sure that various combinations of people being able to see the cards works. So one of the options is that the GM can see all of the cards that are in their current game, as well as where the cards currently are. Kind of a way to keep tabs on various items. And players can't do that because that's just, it would allow players to see things that other players have, and it would allow players to see things that the GM has. Now, you're going to note I'm leaning in pretty hard on behavioral driven development here. I wrote out my scenarios in like very scenario based style, and then I largely implemented them. And most of these tests start out with just create the test server, and then I need to usually authenticate a user and then actually run the function that we're testing. And in this case, it's a function that accesses the API route that I wrote for this. And just for verification, I'm going to make sure that I actually do have that code all working. Wait, task test. Okay, yeah, all of the tests are currently working, including these new ones, the cards. So that's really what I'm working on. Now, all of the data for the application is actually hard-coded into the server state. There's no database. There's no database driving this thing yet. So I've got all of these data structures set up. I've got 5 cards right here. Importantly, for the game that we're looking at, there are 3 cards available. One of them is in the GM's inventory. Second one is on the tabletop. We're going to ignore this one tonight because that gets complicated. And then the third one is in this particular character's inventory. So I'm 99% sure that, in fact, this card should be returned to the user interface when it's being queried. Not sure that it's actually working. So the API route that we are looking at is this one. It is a get operation. It is based on the current game that you're in, so game and the game ID, and then a request of cards. The function get user cards has internally a means of verifying authentication and retrieving the user associated with the current session. And then once you have that, it's going to go through and decide what to do based on the user. So if the user is this game's GM, it's going to return all of the cards from the GM's inventory. Otherwise, it's going to return all of the cards from that particular user's inventory. These are kind of primitively implemented functions, but that's fine for now. They'll all become a lot more sophisticated once I'm starting to actually put a backing store in here. So this is our API. It's actually rooted one level deeper. It's API/games/ID/cards like this, but that's handled at a higher level of the router. So we're going to jump into the user interface. That's not it. That's it. Alrighty. Now here's the fun part. The user interface for this application is also a Rust application. I have written it all using a library called U, right here, YEW. It is effectively, whoever developed it was very familiar with React because almost everything behaves in exactly the way React does. So it's a very comfortable transition from React over to Rust and U. Compile this application to WASM, load it up in I don't know that dist is actually, oh yeah, dist is in use. Okay, good. That's ugly. Just provide a sort of HTML template, and then the compiler, which in this case is not cargo, it's a system called Trunk, is serving as the web server for the application. And there's some messiness going on with cores headers, which I'm going to end up ripping some of that out later. But right now it's just a little bit. Right now there's just some dregs of some bad ideas that I need to remove. Shouldn't really get in the way because obviously application is working right now. I just have to make sure, as one of the quirks, I have to use 127.0.0.1 instead of localhost because localhost isn't in the cores headers. Anyway, let's get started here. Even though I really like being a test-driven developer, I have not figured out how to write and run tests for these WASM applications yet. There's complications around, I think, needing a Chromium instance running and just not something to deal with tonight. So this is a very manual process. Here's the view component that we're using for the GM's interface. So it's this side right here, the multiple panels and all of that. The view component has no internal state. All property or everything that it's going to render is being passed in, including this brand new field, GM cards. And then there's a couple of handlers for various things that can happen. Here are the properties, GM cards, expecting a vector of cards. I am using a system called Stylist to be able to generate CSS. I'm generating it along with, or just generating the CSS directly in the component. I have two different design systems running. We can see like I'm using a CSS style design system, but another valid thing, one that I'm transitioning over to, is a module that's like design : I actually forget how I'm supposed to do this, but it would be like border light. So it's like Rust definitions. Kind of all of this. In fact, it would be. But I also think that there's something about needing to put a $sign right there, and it's not the focus for this evening. So we come down here to the scene. The scene contains, or this is where the GM cards should be rendered. So similar to CSS, we've got an HTML macro here that gives us effectively, like, it's like writing a JSX file if you're familiar with doing React programming. But this is where the GM cards should be rendered, and they are not appearing in the application. There should be at least one card appearing, and this is what we need to figure out. Like, is there data there? Is it not being loaded? That sort of thing. And in order to do this, I think I'm going to bring over this, just kind of put it right here, and I'm going to put in I don't know how to put in a breakpoint. Maybe this is a thing. Nope, it's not. I'm not sure what it's good for. So we won't do that. Instead, we'll just log the number of cards that appear. Okay. That is a build failure. Awesome. Ah, okay. That's easy enough to fix. Still got a build failure. Oh, yes. Okay, loading this up, getting into the console. Card count, 0. Okay, so definitely no cards being passed to the component. So what we're going to do is jump up a couple of levels. The component has a state handler, which is really good for dealing with all of the callbacks. This component ends up being kind of complicated. The player view does as well, because not only are we dealing with querying data from the server, there's also a WebSocket connection, which will handle things like noticing that something has changed and updating the screen as a result. So I already know that effectively this is where we're trying to retrieve the cards. The question becomes, is it being run? Use effect with is, it looks deceptively simple, but it's kind of not. We start out by passing a list of dependencies, either a single dependency or a tuple of them. In this case, it's the session ID and the game ID. And then we need to give it a function, and that function is going to take, it's going to take the dependencies as parameters, and it's going to return a teardown function. That teardown function is a function which takes no parameters. And in my case, it doesn't do anything. Cool. So fn wants... I thought I saw something about futures. In any case, this needs to be done asynchronously. So I'm going to comment out all of this because I'm not sure exactly where things are going wrong. I'm going to start out with use effect with session id.clone game.id.clone, and we're just going to start out by, we're not even going to move anything. Let's say, so the two parameters to the function are the session ID and the game ID. And we're going to log this. And then the last thing we need to do is return the teardown function. And that compiled just fine. Use effect with to load cards has been called. Good. So now I need to call an asynchronous function, which is client.get get user cards. And we do that by spawning spawning a future. So wasm bind gen futures, spawn local async move, and in fact, all right, there we go. And we're going to log here. We'll save that. And something failed. This is not particularly readable, so use of unresolved. Oh, I misspelled wasm. There we go. Okay, cool. So the future use effect with has been called. Cool. So now, so if let, well, here we go. Match client.getUser cards session ID game ID dot await with OK cards. Okay, so that should fail because of some lifetime issues. Unsatisfied trait bound. Oh, okay, so there's an unsatisfied trait bound. So I'm just not even going to print out the error. And should still have some problems in here. Client.getUserCards, expected a game ID. Oh. Expected session ID. Okay. Need to borrow the values. Should still fail. Wait. Oh, it's the reverse. I have to dereference the values. Okay. Now we've got lifetime issues because I'm gonna move this out of the way. Okay, coming down here. Can ignore that for the moment. Okay, so cannot move star session ID, which is behind a shared reference. And it's trying to be moved, but it doesn't implement the copy trait. And in fact, there's some extra stuff here where we've got a lifetime issue. So a borrowed value escapes outside of its closure. I think that, yes, so session ID and game ID here are both borrowed, so they're references, and then they're having to be stored within this, this future that's going to be executed later. So what I'm going to do is clone them so that they can be moved in. And now I have a dog right here barking at me. Oh well, we'll see how that goes. So let's see here. Let session ID equals star session ID dot clone. Let game ID equals star game ID dot clone. That's not the right spot though. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So dereference the session ID reference, call clone on it, and then theoretically that should move the game ID and the session ID in. And it is still angry with me because of client. Client is also an issue. So let's clone client. I think I have to clone client twice, because first I have to clone it to get it into this outer closure. No, we should be able to do it right here. Make it a dependency. And there we go. Cool. Here we go. Go to the screen. Bring up the console. That's the wrong one. This is the one that I wanted. So if I reload, and we're getting unreachable. Okay. That's in the client code. Well, that would be a good reason to not be rendering things. So we'll go to line 81 in the client. handle. Okay, so that's the handler. It's got to be get user cards. So that's going to indicate that something is wrong with the data I'm getting back. Well, fortunately, I've already broken it out. So we're going to log it. Which is going to get noisy because there's some other things that are being executed that all run through handle response. Pipeline's breaking. Borrowed here after move. Move occurs because response data has a... Wait. Oh, that's weird. Printf never moves data. Huh. Oh. I need to decode it from UTF-8, which requires a VEC-U8, so I'm going to clone this, and then I'm just going to unwrap it. Okay. What? Huh. Well, it's returning the entire index. That is a little weird. I'm gonna grab the authorization token here. Here we are. So copy that. Come back over here. Oh, I've forgotten how to do this. Just a second. Gotta look up documentation for new shell. New shell HTTP get headers. HTTP get. There it is. Headers. Authorization. Bearer. No. 8001/API. Oh, is that the problem? Hang on. Hang on. Yeah, that's the problem. I got the URL wrong. Okay, yeah, everything is broken right now because I had, well, I do kind of feel like it should be working, but it doesn't. So, oh, there we go. Now it works. And we are now getting one card. So we retrieved the card. Of course, it's not getting passed around because we're not doing anything with it. We're just printing it. But now it should be very easy because I can call gmcards.set. What is cards? Is it a reference? No, it's a full-on vec. So we'll just own it. Okay, there's some places where, okay. So the thing it's complaining about is, again, an ownership rule, but in this case, it's the GM cards variable. So I'm going to quickly clone it. I don't think I need to dereference it, but we're going to find out in a second. Okay. Yep. Cannot make GM cards a dependency because it is a local state, as you can see right here. So we're going to clone it in this outermost area. And then we have to clone it again to get it from this function into this async block. And we have to move it into this closure to begin with. And that gets that working. So now we can see that there is a card count. And I'm going to go digging in here. Here's the list, and it is in fact present. Oh, in fact, here it is down here. So there's just a sizing issue. So that's some progress. In fact, that is enough progress to be worthy of saving, or at least it will be once I take out the debug prints. Take that out. And then there's that. I'm just going to leave that there. Is that a macro? Yes, it is. Cool. Okay. Okay, so that gets that portion done. Now, the next part, I kind of thought that I might get sidetracked into this, but the next part is a user interface issue. I want the cards to be appearing here, but I don't want there to be any ability to confuse them with scenes. So I think what I want is a tabbed sidebar. So I'm going to have to program that up. And I would really love the tab. I'd really love the tab labels to be vertical. Just haven't decided whether I want them to be on the left side or on the right. I'm going to go with the right. Yeah. So this is going to be kind of a long, painful process because this is going to be all CSS all the time. Tabbed view will have multiple pages. We'll have different content on each page. I'll probably go ahead and preload all of the content into all of the pages so that you don't have to retrieve content when switching between pages. And I haven't done any specifications for this yet. So this is going to be all vibe coded, basically. That's what we'll call it. We'll call it a tab view. Mod tab view. We'll do that. pub use tab view, tab view. Of course, that will absolutely fail to compile because there is nothing in this file to begin with. So let's start with the properties. Struct tab view props. I think it's going to be two nested structures here. So we're going to start with tab props. And the props for a tab will be the title, or I guess we'll call it a label in this case, and it's not optional. And then the other part, what will the second part be? Oh yeah, all of the content. So it's actually really just going to be children. Pretty sure this is how you do that. But the right way to figure it out is to jump into a component I've already written and check it. So like a row, which I'm not actually using right now. A row does not do it. Does props with children not exist in this system? Not a selector, not a label, panel. Well, where's a card? Class content. Oh, okay, so props with children. I must be confusing this with TypeScript. So I get some tab props, and then need to actually make them properties. Properties and partial EQ. Then tab view props. And I think that this is, at least to start out, this is just going to be a list of tabs, I think. We're going to see in a moment. Actually, I don't even know that I can write that yet. Let's actually write the component. We'll write a tab props component first. And this could be very simple at the moment. So I'm actually just going to start out like this. I'm realizing that this may not actually be a thing, this whole tab props, because the label isn't going to get used within this component. So I might be thinking more in terms of like GTK programming, where like the entire model is a bit different. In fact, I'm gonna assume, yeah, I'm gonna assume that's the case. So let's take all of this back out. So I think now the property, the tab view property, is going to be pages where each page is a label. So an attr value and HTML. And we're doing a vec of these. I actually think that's the right way to go. Okay, starting with that. We've got a whole bunch of pages. We're going to decide which one is visible. So another property is probably, is current page going to be a property? I'm going to say no for the moment. So current page is going to be part of the state. So use, or no, let current page equals use state, and it'll be the first, it'll default to first page. Pages dot first. This is complicated because there may not actually be any pages, in which case this shouldn't do anything. So we'll say this is a use state handle of option adder value. So that actually probably is just right, because that's what pages.first should return. So now yeah, pages.find label content, we'll call it children. If label is current page, actually it's going to be star current page, so if the label is the current page, then we're going to return children. How does that work? What does find need to be? It needs to be a predicate. Ah, that's what it is. That is simpler than I was making it. However, still some complications because I think actually the borrows might all be safe. Figured out that type. Figured out that type. Good. And we'll call it, no, we'll do that. So that it's an option. So now that doesn't work. Match page with okay, not okay, sum, the label, and content. And in this case, there will be nothing. Print that. Okay, are there errors in that code? Yes, yes, there are. I see. I do wish that the linter was working better, but for some reason it periodically breaks down in the WASM code. Okay. So expected a use state handle option iString, found a use state handle option. iString dot dot dot. Oh, iString and vnode. What? What did I do? Option adder value pages dot. Oh, I see. Okay, got that first one resolved. So now, got to deal with this. So there's no implementation for an iString equals an option of an iString. That makes sense. I think that will be very easy though. So I think I can just wrap this. Maybe. Option iString. I would expect. Okay, hang on. Yes, perfect. Got that. Now, what is wrong with the content? Into prop value is not implemented for vnode. So possibly the only thing I need to do is to clone that. And now I've got to move, which was not intended. Not liking that. What is current page? It is an option of a real iString, and label is a reference to an iString. And I'm not wanting to get the data out of it. Where does iString live? What? Okay, there we go. Implicit clone unsync string iString. So it's a static or an RC. I can get it as a string reference. Can convert it, I guess, sort of. Maybe I can just grab the string references off of it and compare the, except that's still not right either. This is kind of a pain. That's an iString. Option iString. Once I dereference it, it becomes an option iString. Okay, so that works, but it's actually wildly inefficient because in order to do this comparison, I'm cloning every string every time I do this search, and I hate doing that, so I'm not going to. So I should be able to compare this. Okay, wait. So if let sum current page equals current page, that doesn't quite work. I need to there we go. That's, no, wait, that's not right. What is this? Option iStream. Oh yeah, that is the name of the page. And then we'll say, because page should now be, it is unknown, which means it's not working correctly. Expected use state handle option. Gotta dereference it because of the state handle. I don't. Okay, I can still handle that. Want to avoid moving the label out. Cool, okay. That is, the error there is not the error that we're working on at the moment. So this is actually the page name. And we're gonna say page name double equal label, possibly star label. I think it's star label. Otherwise, we're going to return false. No implementation for, oh, page name itself also needs to be referenced. Maybe neither one of them needs to be dereferenced. Maybe it'll happen automatically. It does. Good. Now I make this public. And that is back to working. Good. Now, I actually have a design system in here. Instead of working on the tab directly in the application, we will work on it in the design system. So what I'm going to do is go over to design.rs, add a new section. This is a little bit fiddly. Probably there are much better ways of doing this, but I've never really felt much desire to rework this section. So that is generating IDs as HTML. I need to generate an HTML button. And then I need to handle it in the routes. And now I need to actually implement that page. Couple of seconds, and it is not appearing. That's awesome. Why is it not appearing? Fields and labels, swatches, tabs. Because I also have to add it to the selector. like I said, a little bit more finicky than I would like for it to be. Okay, so I want to demonstrate the tabs here. So we're going to now do a tab view. And the parameters to it are going to be kind of weird. I think I have to generate them in advance. So we'll do that. And it does not like it. Probably because my parameters are wrong. That's odd. Pages, vec, adder value, HTML. That should be valid. Private field. Okay, there we go. Nothing's appearing yet, of course, because I didn't give it any content. So we'll say let page 1 equals okay, definitely not working. Unsatisfied trait bound. Line 383. Into prop value. It might be angry about this string at the beginning, but I'm not sure. Not implemented for oh yeah, okay. Because it's a string and I need to get it into this I string, which I do by, I think I construct it, well I could make it static and be done. I string static. I think I can make it static. Okay, that's allowed. And so now, so the content on page 1. So first page selected by default. Now we start styling this thing up. Because we need to see all of the tabs. Oh. Wrong keyword. That is now compiled. We've got the content on page 1. Cool. Border light. Let's go with that one. Okay, that's looking a bit better. Margin. Okay, so far so good. Now, this needs tabs off to one side. How do I do that? Want it to be side by side, so I'm going to do a display flex. And then we've got the children followed by the tabs. So the tab labels. That should be okay. Equals pages.iter.map cloned.collect a vec of string. And it is angry with me because that is not part of the macro. Now that should be pretty close. Nope, no it's not. Expected string found iString. Right. What's the fastest way to own this? I can as-stir it. You know, I don't need to. I can continue to just use that. So instead of cloning, well, first, vec of adder value, and take that out, maybe, hopefully. Nope. There we go. So I've got a couple of tab labels. Let's have some fun with those. Tab view labels. List style type. None. Right? Is that right? Yes. And then okay, there we go, getting closer. Now Oh, that does work. Okay. But then the next trick is that I want them to be concatenated vertically. I have no idea how to do that. Well, I could instead of using a UL, I could use a bunch of divs. So we're going to replace that with a div, turn that into a div, at which point I no longer need this. Okay, now display flex. Okay. It's not positioned well, and I don't know why. Because they're rotating. Okay, this is not where I want to rotate things. Okay. Oh, that's weird. What have we got? If I turn the rotation off, it works perfectly. If I turn the rotation on, they overlap. So I'm wanting... Huh. Okay, well, I'm not going to get hung up on this right now. I'm going to take the rotation out. We'll just do this. And technically, I want to just reuse this same selector that I've already got. So a list selector. In order to use the list selector, I need the elements, the enabled item, and what to do on select. So let's start out with the elements. Elements need to be list items, and a list item has to implement ID and as HTML. So pub struct page is going to be label attr value content HTML. This is also going to be properties. And so we've got a vec of pages, and then impl list item for page. So fn id self string label dot as stir, easy enough. And then fn as HTML self might need to clone it. We'll see. Not at the moment. So I've got a set of pages. I'm going to take the labels out. In fact, there's probably a lot of this that I don't want to keep the current page. Except it's going to be different I'm going to comment out all of this. We'll leave that alone. Oh. Okay, those are unsatisfiable traits. Sensible, actually. So I want to go back to the thing that is calling the tab view. Here we go. Page 1 is going to be a page with a label of adder value static. Let's make this pub and make that pub, and it may well be failing due to okay, not a struct. Okay, so it's not importable. So 377. Yeah, doesn't matter which one that's on. Tab components / mod.rs tab view. So we should get through that error. Visions types, components, tab view page, that should be importing. I'll come back to that as soon as I've solved some other bugs. Line 20, it's a vnode, so I need to clone it. And first is a method that needs to be called. And then list selector is missing some. Oh, I have to specify. Uh-oh. Do I not know how this works anymore? Has it been too long? I have to specify the list item type, which is a page. Why is base component not implemented for that? this one. That should be fine. This is kind of weird. I think maybe. Oh, yeah, there's a conflict here. Okay, I see. Yep, okay. Still an unsatisfied trait bound. My function component does not satisfy base components. Is there anything obvious? It takes in parameters, it returns HTML. Clone is not implemented for tab page. Yep, that's a requirement. Okay, I'll handle that in a moment. Oh. Design.rss 377. Struct with a similar name exists. Tabs page. But that's not what it's named. Oh. Huh. Why is it so irritable? Huh. I'm not really sure what's going wrong here. Oh. Hang on. This didn't get saved when I renamed the components. Okay. There's probably additional places where that's going to be a problem. Okay, tab view has on line 50. Yeah, fix that later. Okay. There are props that are missing. Right, I need an onSelect method. We're just not going to do anything with it yet. Implicit clone is not implemented for tab page. Yes, that is correct. It is not. But also, I don't know if it's needed. So many errors now. So on tab view, line 50, yes, I see. Pages themselves need to be cloned. And then the last one is this. So tab page is not implemented for option K. So enabled item tab page dot first. Yep, let's unwrap it. I know that I just removed that. I need to pay closer attention to what it was complaining about. That is incorrect. Enabled item is tab. It's still... Do I just need to clone it? Yes, that's what I needed to do. So yeah, we're starting to get a list here, much like this. Gotta set up the view now so that it's got an internal state where it decides which one to be, or it decides which page to be rendered based on the current selection. So it'll be like children and let's see here, let children equals use state pages dot first dot unwrap dot as HTML and it's wrong. Yes, it's wrong because you can't render a handle. You have to render the data that's in it. And potentially, yep, I have to clone the data as well. There we go. Should have the first page rendering. It does. And now a selector. So in this callback, first thing I'm going to do is clone children. And I'm also going to clone, I'm going to clone pages. And onSelect needs to be, callback needs to take one parameter, which is going to be the value, actually. Let's go to the list selector. That's not going to work yet. Oh boy. There we go. Okay, list selector. My onSelect function takes a string. I'll have to go back and make that more efficient later, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. So this is going to be page name, and then pages dot find So we're page.asStir equals page name. And then, so if that succeeds, then we have a page selected. Okay, that makes sense. Oh yeah. asStir is not found on tab page. Oh, right. Should be an ID. And here, it doesn't know what page name is, because things are getting very complicated. I'd actually like to start fixing that, but this should be a string. So the ID and the page name should be comparable to each other. Okay, so okay, the function has a lifetime pages.first.unwrap. Value requires that one must outlive static, which of course is impossible. Borrowed value does not live long enough. So, lines 48 and 51. Okay, this makes sense. I'm effectively trying to move the current page. Yep. And what's not living long enough now? Oh, do I have to move? Yes, I have to move pages in. Still not there, so pages, return type of closure is... What? Callback from, pages, move. So we're cloning pages, and want to find it. Oh. Whoops. We have to do something with it anyway. Okay. Still angry. Okay. So in this case, I was returning something that I shouldn't have. That makes sense. So match if it exists, return the HTML. That's not exactly what I want to do. I want to do children.set the HTML. And if it doesn't exist, we don't want to do anything. And we don't want to return a value from this. So we do that. And that reloaded, and that doesn't work because I didn't actually pass the call back in. Oops. There we go. Sort of. It's not quite working. But that's okay for purposes of tonight. I'm going to call it there, but the idea of having just done this, like if you were following along earlier, the idea of having just done this is that we can't actually log in at the moment because there is no server to log into. There we go. But the idea of having that is so that I can have multiple tabs, air quotes, along here. So that I can have like a tab for scenes and then another tab for, or page, or whatever you want to call it, for cards. So that I'm going to actually handle offline. And by next week, should be able to start showing this in a bit more of a functional state. I'm going to be hyper-focused on getting the cards working in the inventories, getting them displayed in the inventories, and maybe even getting cards moved from an inventory onto the table and then back into an inventory. So I'm going to call it there for tonight. I think lots of good stuff has been done. I'm going to commit this and upload it. And of course, as always, my project is on my website in the monorepo. So we're looking at git.luminescentdreams.com. Jump into my monorepo, and the current main is right here in Visions. If you want to follow along on this branch, you can look at the Visions card creation branch. That's it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I will get this uploaded to YouTube, and I will talk to you again next Saturday. Good night, everyone.